Welcome to the Viking Age podcast, the official podcast of the VikingAge.com. My name is Chris Schad. I write for Viking Age as well as Zone Coverage, Bring Me the News, and the Brookings Register. My co-host is Adam Patrick, who is the managing editor of the Viking Age. We do this every Monday and Thursday night right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel and on Apple and Spotify every Tuesday and Friday. But however you consume us, rate, comment, like, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode. Some of our loyal fans may have logged on at 6:15 and been like, where the hell are they? And then maybe they just got on with their lives. But we went on late for a reason, because we have breaking news that kind of involves the Vikings, but kind of not. Dalvin Cook has signed with the New York Jets. It's been the worst kept secret in the league ever since he showed up to Jets camp and everybody chanted his name. That was probably a tell that he was going to sign there. Adam Schefter reports that Cook signed a one-year deal worth $8.6 million after incentives. The signing comes just hours after Ezekiel Elliott signed with the New England Patriots for a deal that could get him up to $6 million in incentives. As you know, the Vikings released Cook back in June after a long standoff where they tried to trade, release, do right by Dalvin, and a whole lot of other things. He was set to make just over $10 million in June after a long standoff with the Vikings. Then he was released. Now that this whole thing is over, who won the deal? The Vikings or Dalvin Cook's camp?
I think that remains to be seen or said, because we got to see how Alexander Madison does as a starting running back. And then, Dalvin Cook has to see how well he fits with the Jets, whether or not he's going to have to split carries with Breece Hall or not, or anybody else in that backfield. I know he wants to be the number one guy, but I think the Jets have a different plan for him than he might have for himself. So, yeah, we just got to see if Alexander Madison works out as the top running back in Minnesota, and then if Dalvin Cook works out with the Jets. It's kind of just wait and see right now to see who kind of won. It's kind of like when I guess it's not the Justin Jefferson trade, but when the Vikings traded Stephon Diggs to the Bills, it was kind of just a wait and see to see who won that trade. And the Vikings ended up getting Justin Jefferson. The Bills ended up getting Stephon Diggs, who costs a lot of money now. And you could say that's a win-win for both sides. But right now, I would lean towards the Vikings because they're not paying a big chunk to a running back, and they could still get a similar, not the same, but a similar amount of production with the combination of Alexander Madison, Ty Chandler, and whoever else they got back there. Maybe Kareem Hunt. We'll see. But yeah, this it seemed like it was going to happen. 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago, but then Dalvin left without a deal. And I think the Zeke Elliott signing with the Patriots kind of just kicked it in the butt a little bit, and they were like, Dalvin's team was like, we're probably not going to get any more money than what the Jets are offering us. So let's take it let's take it now before they take it off the table, because Kareem Hunt is still out there, and maybe they were like, all right, we'll pay Kareem Hunt less. But yeah, that's an interesting team now. You got Aaron Rodgers, Dalvin Cook, Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard. Defense is good out there. They have a good head coach. Like, they just have to go. They're battling basically against Jets franchise history luck at this point, because they have all the pieces. But they are in a very tough division and a very tough conference. So, it's an interesting signing. I think it makes the Jets a contender, don't you?
Here's my problem with the Jets. Okay, so I just have a lot of thoughts, and a lot of them are rapid fire because the signing just happened, right? So,
yeah.
You're going to get pure
Raw
unfiltered Chris here. Yeah, like Monday Night Raw, but 20 minutes early. Nice main event tonight between Trish Stratus and Becky Lynch, by the way, if you want to check that out.
Yeah.
The Jets. Ari Merilov, or however you pronounce his name for Pro Football Focus. He's one of the top aggregators on the internet. He listed.
I think he's with Pro Football Network.
Pro Football Network. I'm sorry. he did the whole, I love these tweets because people will go online and be like, look at this offense. This is loaded.
Yeah. Yep.
And then it'll be like Carolina Panthers, like Miles Sanders and Adam Thielen. And look at all these guys. It's a juggernaut offense.
Yeah.
So he was like, this is
who's
like
stopping
mid.
this?
Yes. Who's stopping this?
Yeah.
Ari basically did the same thing because he listed off the Jets offense. It includes Aaron Rodgers, Breece Hall, who is coming off a torn ACL.
Right.
All right. Let's go through it this way. Aaron Rodgers, quarterback. Everybody is happy. Aaron Rodgers. If you watch Hard Knocks, it was basically Hard Knocks training camp with Aaron Rodgers. And like they're talking about him, and he's just like, what do you like about Nathaniel Hackett, Aaron? Well, I think his presentations are funny. I like Goldmember and Austin Powers. And like, oh my God, I wanted to drive into oncoming traffic. Drew McGarry dropped the, if you haven't been keeping up with it since we've last been on the air.
Jets suck.
He has why the Jets suck, and today why the Packers suck. And I would love to repeat some of the things in the Packers one, but it's loaded with F-bombs, like more F-bombs than I should probably say on here. We swear all the time, but like not to that degree.
Those are always must read every year. I gotta go.
Yes, even with the, it's good when like they're roasting your team and you're like, this is awesome, this is great.
Oh yeah, the Vikings one is always the best because he's a Vikings fan, so he's basically just like venting and roasting himself. So
yes, exactly. It's self-loathing relationships.
Yeah.
But Aaron Rodgers, people seem to forget. This dude was so washed that people are like, dude, throw Jordan Love in. And the only reason it didn't happen is because Rodgers' ego is so big and he ran the Packers to the point where I'm not playing until we fall out of contention. And they rattled off 4 straight meaningless wins. And then they ran to Dan bleeping Campbell, who ran them out of the playoffs. Like people just forget that. It's like delete from memory. Oh, he's with the Jets now. And now he has this awesome supporting cast. Let's talk about the supporting cast. Breece Hall coming off a torn ACL. Why would they sign Dalvin Cook if they were 100% sure about Breece Hall's knee? Seems a little weird. Mm-hmm. Garrett Wilson. Okay. I like him. I like Garrett Wilson. I think he's pretty good. Alan Lazard, Aaron Rodgers' friend. And that's about it. He's got a lot of records at Iowa State. Probably has a good lock of the week, considering recent events and Ames. Mecole Hardman, he's not your Cole, he's Mecole. Kick returner extraordinaire, played with Patrick Mahomes. Corey Davis, one of the biggest first-round
busts
in recent memory, as the number 5 overall pick. Randall Cobb. When Aaron Rodgers unfurled his Chris Jericho list to like sign with the Jets, Randall Cobb was like armbar on there. Just like, I would like Alan Lazard, Mecole Hardman, Randall Cobb, Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, Randall Cobb, just like looking right in the thing. They go to commercial. He's still reading it off. CJ Uzima. I should know how to pronounce this, but yeah, I know Uzama. Tyler Conklin, former Viking. Jeremy Rucker. Yes. Yeah. Tyler Gronklin, right? I mean, but seriously, like, what are we doing here? Like everybody just, and then you add Dalvin Cook. And this is what I'm getting to. Like this whole Dalvin Cook thing is so freaking hypocritical on his end because really he could have gotten the same role in Minnesota with Alexander Mattison if the Vikings went up there and said, hey, we're going to let Alex get some carries and whatever. Like, we're probably going to loosen your load a little bit and you'll stay fresh throughout the season. Not doing that. And this whole report, well, I'm not taking a pay cut either or whatever. Why ended up taking a pay cut? He's making about half the base salary that he did in his last contract.
And he's getting $2 million from the Vikings anyways. So
correct.
He's getting about 10.
So he's getting about the same if he hits the incentives, which isn't a guarantee because he's coming off the least efficient career. Yep. Everybody is so just in love with the Jets because there's so many names that help them win their fantasy team. Hey, guess what? Nobody gives a flying fuck about your fantasy team, especially anybody in a front office right now, whether it's running backs, whether it's receivers, whatever. That team is ran by Aaron Rodgers, who is just playing fantasy football, assembling everybody. If Rodgers had his way, Adam Thielen would be a Jet right now, but he's not. So, like, I look at this scenario as like the Jets are a powerhouse. They're going to be dealt with. Look at their own division. They have to deal with Buffalo. I mean, everybody's kind of writing out Buffalo after they disappointed last year, but they still have Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, a lot of good weapons and a pretty good defense. And then they have New England, who I don't care how bad New England is. The Jets are New England's bitch. Bill Belichick basically calls them when he's just feeling bad, like, hey, girl, you up? Like, that is basically the Jets' relationship with the Patriots right now. Anytime they're feeling good, they run to the Jets. And people forgot how this team just ass dived at the end of last year. So, no, I'm not. I mean, couldn't they make the playoffs? Sure. Are they going to get deleted by Joe Burrow? Yes, absolutely. And I'm going to love every second of it. So, screw the Jets. Screw the Jets.
Are you sure you're not reading from McGarry's Jets article? Because
I'm not.
A lot.
I think some of the points in there were a little bit rattled into my brain, but I mean, it's true. Like, people forgot that Rodgers was like washed, and now,
and they're dysfunctional. The organization has been dysfunctional. They still have the same owner, still have the same people in the front office. Like, it's a dysfunctional organization. There isn't a lot of reason to think like they're just gonna flip it around. They got some talented players, but we all know that it takes a whole lot more than just like some names to be a good team in the NFL. Just look at like the Chiefs. They didn't go out and sign Dalvin Cook. Like the Cowboys, they had a bunch of cap space. They could have signed Dalvin Cook. They didn't do that either. Like, these teams know you don't need to spend on a running back to be good, and I think the Jets have an owner in Woody Johnson who's like enamored with those names, like Aaron Rodgers and Dalvin Cook and some of those other guys, because he's thinking about merchandise and sales and publicity and all that stuff. So, like, what are his priorities? Yeah, they probably want to win, but he's got his eyes. They're in New York, so you want to be the talk of the town. Well, what did I tell you? Like, I don't know, like a couple weeks ago, I wrote about it too. Like, Dalvin Cook got really bad advice, and he's been getting bad advice this whole time. I don't know from who. I don't know if it's his agent or somebody else, but he probably cost himself money. I'm assuming that the Jets. I don't think this is the Jets probably like their first offer or whatever. This is probably like their last and final offer. Like, you can take this or leave it. But yeah, if he took a pay cut with the Vikings, he probably could have stayed. And if Alexander Madison doesn't do that well, then he becomes a top guy again. There's no guarantee of that in New York, and now he has to join a team on August 14th. He hasn't been in minicamp. He hasn't been in OTAs. He's missed almost all of training camp. They've played 2 preseason games, and now all of a sudden you're just going to throw him in there and he's going to be good to go? No, he's probably not going to be ready to like have a full grasp on this offense, this Nathaniel Hackett offense, until probably like October,
What
November.
does that mean, Aaron? I don't know. The hand signal, huh? Are we running it?
And then you think about like him starting this late. He's coming off his shoulder surgery, and he's had soft tissue injuries in the past. So you think about him like not being in football shape. That's a real thing. So yes, it's exciting. I'm sure Jets fans are like, yes, we got Dalvin Cook today. But this isn't coming from bitter Vikings fans either. We just know who the real Dalvin Cook was last year, and he was not the same Pro Bowl caliber guy that was out there in 2020 and 2021. He did make the Pro Bowl, but so did the Ravens quarterback who threw like 2 touchdowns. So you can say what you want about that. But yeah, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to watch Hard Knocks because it airs tomorrow, so I don't know if they'll be able to fit that in. But NFL Films is usually pretty good, so they'll probably try and get something in there about it.
Cook likes to run into the back of his offensive line lately. Will there be another butt fumble, you think?
Oh, yeah.
Butt fumble 2.0. Just like thought the hole was there. I was explosive. Whoops.
I mean, if he...
you know what? It is totally possible Dalvin Cook just has one more good season in the tank. He blows up, and that's the good thing for him. It's a 1-year deal, so if he has a monster year, he can go back to the negotiating table. Probably not going to get like a long-term deal, but I mean, somebody will give him some money if he can rehab his value. And when you consider it as a rehab deal, $8.6 million for a running back is pretty good.
Yeah, it is. Do you feel like this team is closer to, reminds you more of like the Eagles' dream team back in the day, or is this more 2009 Vikings?
Well, 2009 Vikings had some guys that were like
Already there.
in their
Their
in
defense
their
was good.
prime, basically. Yeah. And I mean, the Jets have young talent.
Yeah,
where
they got Sauce Gardner
have-
and Quinnen Williams on defense. Those guys are really good.
They remind me of the 2018 Vikings, if we were to compare this to a team, because that was a team that had a young core, and then they brought in Kirk. They got their big quarterback, and they had all this talent around him, and they said, "Okay,
Dalvin
go." And they
Sheldon
took
Richardson.
it. Yeah. I mean, we can basically say that. I would say that. Yeah, 1-year prove it deal, trying to rehab his value, and maybe Sheldon. He never got back to that same level, and he never got that. I think he got a big deal from the Cleveland Browns the year after.
Yep.
Which of course he did. But I think that's a fair comparison here. If we're talking about what does this team remind you of, 2018 Vikings sounds pretty damn good.
Totally agree.
A whiz kid coordinator. Just hey guys, it's called the Gold Zone. I made that up.
Yeah. I'm just very interested to see, because Dalvin's been with the same team and almost the same entire offense except for last year, his entire career. And the Jets don't run the same offense. Like Nathaniel Hackett comes from, who's Doug Marrone, that coaching tree, if he has one, from like Syracuse and the Bills and the Jaguars.
Part of the Aaron Rodgers coaching tree, to be honest.
Right.
But
yeah. But he did work with LaFleur, Matthew LaFleur. Yeah. The Packers coach. So there might be some concepts that translate over to the Jets that are similar that Dalvin might know. But yeah, he's got to learn an entire new offense. The season starts in less than a month, and they have to play the Bills on Monday night. First game of the year. Good luck.
Dun, 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 dun.
That's going to be the ratings for that are going to be so high.
I know.
Be absurd.
It's going to be a banger, as the kids say. Meanwhile, in Minnesota, there is some running back news, as Kareem Hunt, another former fantasy football hero, visited the Minnesota Vikings on Friday. Kevin O'Connell once again ran down how the visit works when he was asked about it. Well, you see, at this point of the preseason, we're just looking to improve our team anyway. And there's a guy out there who was not currently on a team. So we brought him in for a visit, showed him the entire locker room, took him to Manny's. He got drunk. He got a big steak in it. And then he said, left town without a contract.
Future politician, Kevin O'Connell.
Future politician. Yes. I mean, if you can get that Manny's meal out of the Vikings, I suggest you do it, even if you don't.
Oh yeah.
Even if you don't want to,
right.
Sign with the Vikings, just get the steak and get out of Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Just like Donald Reisner and Ronald Darby and Breece Hall, like I had said, why would the Vikings do this if they weren't concerned? And should the Vikings sign Kareem Hunt for a little bit of depth? What do you think?
Oh, I think it depends how much he costs. If he's going to cost what Dalvin wants, then no. If he's going to even cost what Alexander Madison is getting paid, then no. Because why would you bring in someone and pay them more than the guy you want to be your number one back? And Madison's making around like close to $3 million. So
and that would set off alarm bells if you're Alexander Madison.
Right.
Like, wait a minute, they just gave that guy more money than I got in free agency.
Right.
Maybe Alexander Madison's getting bad advice. I don't know, but
right. And I don't think Kareem Hunt's gonna. I don't know what it's making, like the reports about him and all the news breaks and everything are making it seem like he is the caliber of Dalvin Cook or Zeke Elliott, the way that people have been talking about him. And it's like, no, this guy's been a backup for like the last 4 years. So like he's not going to get a significant amount of money. at best, he might get what Alexander Madison is making next year, and that's at best. And I don't even know if he's going to get that. So if the Vikings are able to get him for less, then yeah, I would say it wouldn't be a terrible idea. He's good for like a change of pace kind of guy. He's really good out of the backfield as a receiver. And then they have questions behind Madison. Ty Chandler looked pretty good against the Seahawks in the preseason, but can you depend on him as that true number two guy? Kene Wong, who's been hurt. Dwayne McBride looks like he's destined for the practice squad. And then who else? Abram Smith from XFL. Like,
Yeah.
he seems like a practice squad guy too. Maybe
I want to
at
say he
best.
was from the Las Vegas Outlaws, but I don't think that's right.
That's
the only XFL
That's the
team
old
I know.
XFL.
That's the XFL.
I want to say he was from the Roughnecks, Houston Roughnecks.
That could be. Yeah.
Who knows? I could be making up that team name anyways. But yeah, I don't think it's something you don't consider. Obviously, they did consider it, and that's why they brought him in. But like Kevin O'Connell kind of alluded to, they're just kind of, meeting with guys, being like, "Hey, are you interested in coming in? If not, maybe we can reconnect later if we need more help and we're, more desperate, I guess, to get someone." I guess after the preseason game against the Seahawks, a lot of people were like, they should sign Dalton Reasoner now because look at Ed Ingram. And I'm just like, I don't really know if he would be that much better. Like he was in Denver. He started a lot of games, but he didn't make the Pro Bowl. Like,
we talked about it a little bit, me and Luke Braun in the last episode of the Viking Age on Friday, and I think part of it was on Ingram, who kind of like, I want to see how Ed Ingram does in this joint practice when he's working with the starting offensive line, because I think that's going to tell us a lot more than that preseason game did.
Right.
Plus, we also mentioned that I almost called him Sean Mannion, but Nick Mullins was, as Arif Hassan put it, has a panicking in the pocket where it was like, no.
He settled down a little bit, but yeah, at first he was
did.
just like, yeah. Because Ed Ingram was the only first string guy who started, so he was working with he had Ali Udo next to him. He had Alan Ali at center, who's a rookie in his very first preseason game. So it's not like those guys were practicing with each other every day and knew their tendencies and everything. So there could be some things that it might make it look like Ed Ingram is the one who made the mistake, but it could have been someone else entirely. And yeah, that it seemed like, just going back to the preseason game, because I wasn't here when you guys talked about it, but even Jaron Hall, some of the the pressure he faced, or the mistakes that he made, I'm like, I don't really know how much I can put that on him, because he's out there with third and fourth stringers, and they couldn't block the Seahawks to save their life. I think they gave up 12 pressures in the second half compared to 2 in the first half.
Are you a Jaron Hall truther?
I'm not a truther.
Are you just,
I just think he's better
than. What's he supposed to do? Second and third stringers?
No, I think
I'm
he's better than.
If he's so good, make some plays, dude.
I think he's better than he looked on. What was it? Is it Saturday? No,
Thursday.
It was Thursday.
Seems like an eternity. I know.
Yeah. I just think he's better than the way he looked. I think if you put him in with the Vikings starting offense, and he would look a lot better. Also, Kevin O'Connell would make sure he wasn't put in a position to fail. Where on Thursday it's just okay, kid, go out there and kind of show us what you can do and play and see if you can survive, basically, with these practice squad players blocking for you against the Seahawks team, who just always seems to be super deep, and they have random Jake Bobo. Who is that?
It's
did
Jake Bobo.
Did they make that person up right before the game?
It was one of the Madden generated players.
You know who didn't know who Jake Bobo was? Andrew Booth Jr. He had no idea who he was, and he blew right by him.
He thought he was the trainer.
Yeah. He's like, this will be easy.
Where's Jake Bobo? Oh no.
Yeah, he's behind you.
It's Bobo. Yeah. Not to be confused with Mobo, who Santa's little helper,
German Randy Moss
from the draft a couple years ago. Santa's little helper is an awesome nickname. Why is he called that? Then I describe it, and they're like, Oh, gotcha. Kareem Hunt. So let's talk about the backfield specifically. We talked about all this depth stuff. Kene Wong was out with an undisclosed injury right now. Kevin O'Connell updated everybody on Saturday about it. Wongwu did not play in Thursday's
Been out
game
for a
against
while,
the
right?
Seahawks. What's that? Yeah,
Been out
he's
for a
been
while, right?
out pretty
2
much
weeks?
the entire training camp, I think.
Yeah.
You mentioned Ty Chandler did well, 70 yards on 15 carries. Abram Smith and Dwayne McBride were just guys.
Yep.
Wongwu is interesting to me in this whole thing because I don't think his roster spot is secure. The NFL kickoff rules are a big deal for guys like Wongwu who turn kicks and don't do much else. You're going to want teams wanting to call that fair catch and getting the ball at the 25. If you can't return punts, it's almost like Office Space. Like, what is it exactly that you do here? Well, I return punts or return kicks. Okay. There was also an interesting note by, I believe, Alec Lewis of The Athletic, who said Wongwu was kind of lining up everywhere, kind of has that offensive weapon role. Like, it seemed like a last resort to me. But there's also the fact that Hunt has been pretty washed since his rookie year in the league. He hasn't rushed for 1,000 yards since his rookie season in 2017. That dude was going to make so much money before he kicked that woman in the back. Because, and I'm not making fun of that. I'm just saying, like, he was a rushing champion in his first year. I think he only fumbled once on his first carry. Like, he was on the path to like making one of the last big running back contracts.
And he would have multiple rings.
Right. And I think the Chiefs kind of knew. They're like, hey, it's a system. And I mean, they released him because of the video. Like, they didn't release him because they thought he was a system back, but that might have been part of it. Because a couple years later, the Chiefs went in the 7th round and all hope was gone. And then, there he is, Isaiah Pacheco, the modern day running back. Oh, you spent $8 million on Dalvin Cook. We have Isaiah Pacheco. I'm
laughing.
Since
I gotta show you something real quick.
What's that?
We were just talking about the hype around the Jets offense, and look what the NFL just did.
Somebody tweet it out? Oh,
NFL official account. Oh, baby.
Who's gonna stop them? Who's gonna stop them?
How long have they had that ready? How long have they had that ready?
Since everybody was chanting, since Rich Eisen was drooling over Dalvin Cook.
The social media intern in the NFL office is like, oh, finally, I made this like 3 months ago. You get to use this.
Just got it in the back pocket. Just like they probably had one with the Dolphins ready to go. Like, 6 months ago. And they're like, oh, I never got to use it. Hunt has averaged 3.8 yards per carry since, or I think it's 4.2 since 2017, or at least since he left the Chiefs. And he averaged a career low 3.8 yards to carry with the Browns. I know it's the Browns. I know they struggle. And I know they would rather give the ball Nick Chubb 500 times and pay him a quarter than use their backup running back. But between Kenneth Darby, Dalton Reisner, and Hunt, it sounds like Darren Wolfson believes that TJ Hawkinson is the priority right now. And what they say, he's got an ear infection. Is that what's going on?
Yes, an ear infection that's throwing off his equilibrium. So basically,
that's no joke, actually.
Oh, no, yeah.
But
I have...
You have two kids. You've had your own ear infections.
I can relate because my kids, I have one kid who had got tubes in his ears for ear infections. I have another one who's going to get tubes in his ears for ear infections. My wife gets ear infections. I'm the only one. Like, I somehow avoid these hereditary ear infections. But yeah, they're no joke because my wife. Adult ear infections are painful, and like. It's a distracting pain. It's not like a severe pain where like you can't walk or whatever, but like it's nagging, distracting. So I totally understand Hawkinson's ear infection diagnosis if that's indeed what it is. Because before we're like he's got an illness, and I think the Vikings or even Hawkinson might have been a little fed up with all of us speculating like, oh, you got an illness or are you doing a whole business?
His tummy seems to hurt every time he thinks about his contract.
Because you're showing up to practice in uniform, but you're not practicing. But the ear infection seems legit. That's not something you just make up. So
At least they didn't go with bilateral leg weakness. That would have been.
What is that? What's that from?
Have you never heard of that?
No.
So Joe Mauer, who is like one of the greatest twins of like
Yeah.
my, there's Kirby Puckett when I was a kid, but like in my adult lifetime, Joe Mauer's like, he's like Tony Gwynn out here, except half the fan base hates him because he hit 29 home runs last 1 year, and then he never came close to it because they moved out of the Metrodome. But I think it was that following year after he signed like $184 million contract, he went on the injured list and like nobody could like figure out what to do. So the Twins were just like, bilateral leg weakness. And everybody's like, what is that? And like, it's now like a punchline in Minnesota sports history. Like everybody's like, when somebody goes out, it's like, oh, do they have bilateral leg? Byron Buxton's going to get bilateral leg weakness. Actually, he's just going to like break a bone because that's like half of his injuries. But
it's like a Vikings player having a knee issue.
Right. Yes.
So surprising.
Yes. So I'm out on Kareem Hunt.
You're out?
That sound like a good transition point.
You don't want him the Vikings to sign him, even if they can get him for like 1.5. Because I'm thinking
they get him for 1.5. I mean, I'd think about it. You also have to consider, how does this person fit in the room? I think that's a big thing you have to consider. And he's made it with the Browns for I don't know how many years it's been, but
about 4.
I mean, you kind of gotta consider that.
Also, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah came from the Browns. He was part of the regime that signed Kareem Hunt. So he's pretty familiar with him and his background. And I don't think he's gotten in trouble since then.
No. To his credit.
Yeah.
There hasn't been too much. There's been worse things that have happened in Cleveland since Kareem Hunt has shown up. But, including Johnny Manziel. There's a good good transition.
That's good.
The Netflix documentary Untold Johnny Football came out last week, and holy shit, is it awesome. I watched this last week. You watched it over the weekend, and you sent me a text just like, we need to talk about this. So what do you want to talk about?
Was it a documentary or was it more like a highlight reel of his time at Texas A&M? Because
was both.
Because that was like 45 minutes of the documentary, and then the other 15 minutes were like, oh yeah, he went.
He did drugs.
Oh yeah, he went to the Browns. Oh yeah, he did drugs. Oh yeah, he got in an domestic dispute with his girlfriend or whatever. He's good now. He's partying. It was weird. He clearly was paid for it. I think it's pretty obvious because he's going around like promoting. He went around to like he went to McAfee, he went to Levitard, he went to a bunch of everywhere to like promote it. You probably don't do that if like you didn't get any money for it. And it seemed like, it just seemed like they just glossed over his problems. I will say this: in college, when he was in college, I didn't give a fuck what he did. He's a college kid, like any kid, any person who was in college, almost like at his age, was doing the same thing, but he was just in the spotlight. And I also don't care that he fucked over the NCAA because they were making so much money off of him, and he was like, "Cool, I'm making like 30 grand off of autographs. Give me a break." So I don't care about that. But afterwards, when he was kind of like, I didn't watch film, I didn't really care. I just wanted to party. It's like, all right, at some point, like, you gotta like kind of look in the mirror and like, is this what you want to do? Obviously it wasn't. So I don't know. I still root for the guy. I wanted the Vikings to draft him. And I think
you weren't alone.
No. When they drafted Anthony Barr, everyone was like, "No!" I think that whole draft party. I remember like seeing video from it.
I've told you the story about Anthony Barr that I have, right?
I don't know about that.
So I had a friend over for that pick, and he wanted
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So for those who hadn't heard it, basically they took Anthony Barr. He wasn't at the draft, and my friend started screaming at the top of his lungs, "He's not at the draft. What is this?" So that's like a joke now. If somebody's not at the draft, like when Justin Jefferson got taken, I texted him, "Man, he's not even at the draft," even though nobody was at the draft. Because
and you know who Johnny Manziel's first quarterbacks coach was, right?
Kevin O'Connell.
It was. You see his little brief cameo during the pro day or whatever, and his agent. Yeah, he just
his
it was
agent.
What a fucking jackass. That's Kyler Murray's agent.
Oh.
Yeah, it's very obvious. I don't know. He landed with the worst agent. He had the worst people around him, friends wise. He landed with one of the worst NFL franchises. So he didn't have a lot going for him once he left Texas A&M. He was pretty much set up to fail, but he also contributed to that as well with his drug use and drinking and all that. But I would like to think that if he landed with Mike Zimmer in Minnesota in what was this, 2014? I'd like to think he had I'm not going to go out and say he would have succeeded and done well in the NFL and stayed in the NFL longer than 2 years. But I would like to think that he would have a better shot at remaining in the NFL, or at least having some sort of career in the NFL. Because Mike Zimmer, players liked him because he held them accountable. And at the end of his tenure, it got a little, he was lashing out at people and everything. But in the beginning, there were a lot of Vikings players who said something similar to, "I would run through a wall for Mike Zimmer," and that was said by multiple players, Kyle Rudolph, Adam Thielen, Stefan. I don't know if Dick said it.
No, I would run all the way to Buffalo for Mike Zimmer.
Chad Greenway, but Brian Robinson. A lot of these guys were he may be hard on you, but it's for a reason, because he thinks you have more than you're, putting out or offering. So I would like to think that Johnny Manziel would have had a better shot with the Vikings. Not saying he would have succeeded, but he would have had a better shot in the NFL if he landed with the Vikings than with the Browns.
Now, I think you've been reading my articles, and now you're just saying them verbatim on air. Come on, man. Call a spade.
Did you write about it? I didn't even see it.
I did write about it for Zone Coverage, which you can go check out at zonecoverage.com.
Yeah, go check it out.
I know this, and go check out all the stuff at the vikingage.com, obviously, because we have great content as well. Advertise here in just a little bit. But I loved it because this was like injecting a football into my neck, just with all the high school highlights and all of Manziel's stories. That's what I loved so much about it. You said it was 45 minutes, and I mean, that's probably why I like the documentary. And you mentioned it was kind of swept on the rug and oh yeah, you did drugs and party, but hey, check out Donnie's highlights, Donnie football, man. It's awesome. And you look at, here was my counterpoint with all the Mike Zimmer stuff, because I agree with you. If you get a coach like Mike Zimmer with Johnny Manziel, maybe he kind of pushes him a little bit. Maybe he goes, "Hey, you have a great opportunity here. I know you got screwed over in college, but you're getting paid now. You have a chance to make a lot of money here and be the quarterback." Plus that locker room could have definitely elevated him a lot more than Cleveland, because I don't think anybody was happy in Cleveland. That being said, I think Manziel was just broken at that point with all of the stuff that had happened with his high school friend, with the autograph thing, which is such a big scandal. Think about it now. And I texted you this. How much money would Johnny Manziel had made if he had NIL? He would have, he would have stayed all 4 years in college. Just I'm going to make more money. People talk about WNBA right now. Paige Beckers is a Minnesota native, and she's the next big thing in women's basketball. And it was oh, why don't you go pro to the WNBA? She's I'm going to make more money on this Hy-Vee NIL deal than, with the Lynx or whatever. NIL is for real, because there's no legislation behind it. And there's not, I mean, it's basically turning into Major League Baseball, where the Yankees just throw $500 million at Shohei Ohtani and they get him. That's kind of the direction they're heading with college sports right now. But he's right. Texas A&M made a bunch of money off of him. You know,
They were selling
Adidas,
his
like
jerseys.
everybody. Yeah. Everybody made money off it. And Cliff Kingsbury used him as a stepping stone, basically, because he had Manziel. Then he goes over to, which, by the way, that coaching staff with Kevin Sumlin and Cliff Kingsbury, the most laid back thing ever. And like you said, yeah, I don't really care if a guy gets busted with a fake ID or whatever like that. It's not ideal, but it's not like, oh my God, you should be reprimanded for that. Why do you have a fake ID as a 19-year-old?
That's kind of
the
mentality Kingsbury said he kind of had. He was like, sometimes you just gotta let Johnny be Johnny.
Yeah,
and
and him showing up hungover to the Mississippi State walkthrough,
like
and just
sweating
like,
vodka.
you better play your ass off.
Yeah, and he did.
but
it's a lot easier to do that in college, than the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, in the NFL, you don't have the luxury that he had at college, where it was go beat Alabama and then go party with a whole bunch of co-eds or whatever. In the NFL, you have to watch film, you have to do all that stuff. And like, him too, at that point, he was probably just like, I am so done and burned out on football. Like, I don't want to play anymore. And I think the same problems would have happened in Minnesota, where he would have been the face of the franchise. He would have been anointed the savior. And
he would have loved Chris Thomas.
Chris Thomas and Johnny Manziel interviews.
I called Johnny Manziel, but he hung up on me and didn't respond.
Yeah.
So many of those tweets.
And of course, too, he wound up, he said in the doc that he wound up, trying to commit suicide. So, I mean, I think it was more than
that kind of like just glossed over.
Point. Yeah, it was just like,
that's kind of,
well, I committed suicide, and then, here's him golfing with his dad.
And that seems kind of big, that you bought a gun with the purpose to shoot yourself and it just didn't work. But yeah, I just don't think he was ever had the mentality to be that big of like a celebrity, because he was massive. Like, it was more than just sports. Like, he was like TMZ level, like follow you everywhere you go celebrity. Now he liked it when he was in college because he got to hang out with like Drake and all those athletes and everything, and it was awesome. But eventually, when you're struggling and people start following you, asking like what's going on at like some of your worst moments, that's when you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. And he even said, like, I think it was after they beat Alabama, after every game he would go and like find his parents, and he couldn't find them because there were just so many people like wanting his autograph and celebrating and stuff. And his mom said like he had like this big look of fear in his eye because he was just like, this is not fun, because there's just so many people, and some people are built for the spotlight. Like Justin Jefferson, he's not like everyone look at me, but he can handle it. A lot of those guys, but not Aaron Rodgers, obviously. He just give him as much attention as you like, over give him his attention. That's what he wants. But yeah, I just don't think, because if he was, I feel like after his career, we would have seen him, maybe doing his own podcast or something, or like more in the public eye. But he's laid pretty low, and I think he likes it that way. But yeah, it's weird how they were like, he went to rehab and everything, and then the last scene is like him drinking a beer with like his dudes. It's like, so
yeah, I thought that they were like, they had like the little like shotgun cork thing. Not that I'm judging him for like, I mean, if he can handle it, sure,
right,
drink away.
Like, but
it is a little weird. Yes,
but it doesn't seem like, we don't know like if he does it every day or anything, but it was a interesting.
Johnny, lay off the coke. Like, just stick to alcohol. Like,
all those untold like documentaries are kind of weird. They seem like the Manti Te'o one, like there seemed like there's some stuff missing, and like there's other ones too as well. But like, I don't know. Like, it seems like there's still more stuff that they could have dove deeper, and they didn't really do. It was mostly about his time in college. Maybe that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like I learned a lot, except for like him not reading the playbook at all, and him attempting to commit suicide. Those are like the only things that were kind of new that came out of it. But Yeah, I was a Money Manziel guy back in the day. I will admit, and the Vikings reportedly they
Well, and
they were pretty
that
high,
was
they were
the
pretty
other
high on Manziel.
that was the other weird thing is like they're saying all these teams did their homework, and I texted Cleveland. There is a Peter King report out there that said 6 teams wanted to trade up for 22 to go get Manziel. So, I mean, either Eric Burkhart was just slamming slamming the
Somewhere.
BlackBerry or whatever at that point, and I mean, he was gonna have his dad
Dad had
fake a
fake a
heart
heart attack.
attack
Yeah, what the
to
fuck?
skip the scouting combine. Like these agents,
If
man.
if my kid or if I had an agent that said that, I'd be like, all right, you're done. I'm gonna get someone else who can like
Right.
solve
Yeah.
this normally. I know it's not a normal job because you're dealing with millions of dollars in football and everything, but like that's not a good idea. That's
That's a little far. Let's dial it back a little bit. See what we can come up
it
with.
was yeah. What isn't there another one? There's another untold about what Florida Gators
Florida
coming out.
Gators. And I will be
Yeah,
very excited to see
Percy
that
Harvin in
one.
there.
Yes.
That'll be
And
good.
the greatest coach of all time,
Tim Tebow.
Urban Meyer. Tim Tebow.
His birthday today. Happy birthday, Tim Tebow.
Tim Tebow's tuning in as we speak right now. Just like,
Hey
oh,
Tim.
thanks, guys.
Yep.
Hi, Tim. What do we got at the Viking Age right now?
Well, the Vikings have a preseason game on Saturday against the
Yeah, they do.
Titans inside US Bank Stadium. They got joint practices all week, so we'll be covering that with the Titans. Just keeping an eye on the Hawkinson stuff. Keep an eye on Justin Jefferson's contract possibility. Keep an eye on free agents. Kareem Hunt, Dalton Reisner. Who's the other guy? Darby. I think Darby actually visited somebody else today too. Can't remember who it was, but and then coming up with fun ideas like maybe the Vikings the trade price for Trey Lance is lowering, so the Vikings should go after him now because people just love to talk about Trey Lance. No, they don't. But yeah, lots of good stuff over there. So keep an eye out for that. And I also wanted to shout out. I wanted to do the beginning, but I forgot. But Arif Hassan, former Vikings reporter for every Vikings outlet, Daily Norseman, Zone Coverage, Pro Football Network, The Athletic. He's done at Pro Football Network. He said they let him go today, and he started a newsletter. It's called Wide Left Post. Substack.com. So go check that out. I already subscribed because he's really good at what he does, and it's I believe it's a newsletter that covers all the NFL and with some politics mixed in. So you can subscribe or not, but if anyone's ever followed Arif, just go support that because I feel like he's one of us. Come from the blogosphere, and he made it to he got hired by the Athletic and Pro Football Network. Kind of got to the beat, which not a lot of us have been able to do, or maybe have wanted to do. But yeah, go check that out. Reef always does good work, so go check that out for sure. And follow the Viking Age, obviously.
And I did check that out. The Titans actually worked out Ronald Darby, so there could be a WWE type during practice. He's like,
one last thing before we go.
Oh, I thought you were talking about that, but go ahead.
Why'd they just kind of blah the Jey Uso leaving? They're just like, kick everyone in the face and then you go, okay? And then you're done.
That's a hell of a way to quit any job, though.
It is.
Kick everyone in the face.
But I thought maybe they would beat him to the pulp or something and get it. That's usually how they write people off, I feel like. But this time it was just Jey Uso deuces.
Deuces.
I saw a report that was the real reason why Jay left is, and someone was like, because he needed time off. I'm like, that's not devastating.
Why did the chicken cross the road?
Yeah, and we talked about. I think we talked about in the past, how are they gonna? I think be able to get the Usos all the way to WrestleMania. And you mentioned how they would stretch the Mysterios to WrestleMania. This is how you do it. You get Jay off TV, have him come back for the Rumble or something, and then there you go. You've got WrestleMania Usos versus each other.
I am very much looking forward to that, and still waiting for that WrestleMania announcement at US Bank Stadium.
Ooh.
But Any day now. Come on, WWE. Any day now. But that is all the time we have for the Viking Age podcast tonight. It's the official podcast of the VikingAge.com. My name is Chris Schad. He is Adam Patrick. And we do this every Monday and Thursday night right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. But you can listen to us on Apple and Spotify the very next day. But however you consume us, rate, comment, like, and subscribe so we can spread the word, get more people in here, and have some fun on these live shows. But for Adam Patrick, I am Chris Schad. We'll talk to you next time on the Viking Age podcast. Deuces, ooses.